All right, we are recording. We are live. Let's see. So, hi everyone. I want to welcome you to Meaningful Conversations. We started Meaningful Conversations here at Living Healthy List because we found that we were really in need of honest discussions on topics that actually were relevant to our health, to our wellness, to our personal growth, and honestly, to our overall happiness. And, in the past few years, we kind of felt like we weren't having any fun. We were talking a lot, but we really weren't delving into the topics that actually made a difference in our lives. So, Meaningful Conversations, we decided at Living Healthy List, yes, we're sponsored by Living Healthy List. We decided to make this a monthly forum where we have different experts in different areas, various areas of health and wellness, and each month. And we delve into a different topic that can truly affect us in a positive way. So today's discussion is going to center around boundaries. Boundaries are your personal path to professional and personal success. For those of you who are new to Meaningful Conversations, I am Denise Siegel. I am the CEO curator at livinghealthylist.com, and I am the curator at Forever Wellness or of Forever Wellness Lifestyle. I am a healthy lifestyle coach, and truly what we are talking about always is living a healthy lifestyle, a lifestyle that works best for you, because we know what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And so this is why we bring different experts into this conversation so we can live and learn and open our minds to different thought processes. So today I'm really excited because we have a couple of different panelists here, and I'm actually going to go and have them tell you a little bit about who they are. But right now we have online Judy Kane and Mary McMonagle, and they're going to tell us a little bit about themselves. I'm going to just make sure that we don't have anybody in the waiting room, and we do not. Okay, so let's see, Judy, you're on my top right. Do tell us, who you are, what you do, and how you work with your clients, and how you work with your clients.
Okay, sure. Well, I am Judy Kane, and my business is Aligned Consciousness. And I help people rewrite those subconscious beliefs that are limiting them in some way in their life. I like to say I help them take out the head trash. But those subconscious beliefs get there usually by the time you're 7. That's where most of them are by the time you're 7. And we don't always know what they are. We just know that things are patterns in our lives that are not making us get what we want. So people come to me wanting to change that. And I have a fast change process called Psych-K that can help people change any one belief in less than 5 minutes usually. So you can get a lot done in a short period of time. Now, some situations are created by multiple subconscious beliefs. So I'm not saying that every situation can be solved like that, but you can make great progress in very little time towards changing some of those beliefs. And with our topic today about boundaries, a lot of times I see that the people who are struggling with boundaries, it's related to subconscious beliefs about their worth, about their value, either how they value themselves or how they perceive other people valuing them. And so we frequently will work with boundaries, priorities, not always putting yourself last.
Yep. As women, we're really good at that, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. We really are. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy. Mary, I'll have you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and how you work with your clients around this topic.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Judy and Lynn, and hi again, Denise. I am Mary. I'm from New Jersey, right near Atlantic City. So I am a dating and relationship life coach. I specifically work with single women who want to attract a high value man in real life without using dating apps. So what does that mean? That means we really work on being present. We really work a lot on our self-worth, our presence, our energy, and we work a lot on confidence, opening up, being vulnerable, being feeling safe and secure to express our true selves, especially when we are out in the real world. I know I am a millennial here, but I'm very big on building in-person connections. So we work a lot on creating heart-centered and deep connection. So the boundaries topic today, I'm really excited to jam out about because that's also a big one, because when you are out moving and about, you're not hiding behind a screen. So you do have to step into your power and set boundaries. So that's how a little bit about me and how I work with my clients.
I think this is so exciting because, I think we get into a place where, we're talking to almost the same people, like this, kind of like you get into an age group and, that's kind of who you're talking to. And so that's a beautiful thing about today is, all of us are in different age groups and, see things very differently. And I think that is something, again, that we need to open our minds to, specifically, when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to our health and wellness. We always we get to a stage in life and we think we know everything. And one of the things I learned when my niece and my nephew were young, they're young adults now, is that they were so insightful. And so I'm really excited to bring Mary as a relationship coach into this conversation. I just really, since there's we have a couple of guests here and we have a little bit of time, I just want Lynn and Suzanne to tell us, say hello and tell us where you're located. Lynn, please.
Well, good. I'll have to say good day because it's not morning where you guys are, but it's morning where I am. I am Lynn Lambrecht, and I live an hour north of San Diego in Temecula, California.
Ooh, love it there. Miss Suzanne.
Hello, hello, everyone. Suzanne Taylor King from New Jersey, and it's finally not 90 degrees here today, so it's very nice.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for being with us today. And we are going to open the conversation. At some point, we're going to ask for questions, if you have any questions, if you have any comments. So this is meant to be a discussion. Yes, Judy and Mary are our experts of the day or for the day. And we're going to ask them for some insight, but we're also going to ask, for your insight and input and questions as well. So let's get right into this. Your boundaries are your path to personal and professional success. And I know I believe that wholeheartedly. So let's talk about, like, how do we define boundaries? What are boundaries? How do we define them? And what are their impact on us and others? So Judy or Mary, either one of you, jump on it.
You want to go?
Judy, go for it. You're
Oh,
Judy,
okay.
You're still on my right-hand side, so I'm probably always going to go that way.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, definitely boundaries are the way we get to enforce what the choices are that we're trying, what our priorities are. They're the way that we get to teach people how to treat us. If we can't, define and maintain our boundaries, then people aren't likely to treat us with the respect that we should have for ourselves, and we hope others have for us as well, right? So I think they're really important. I guess, it's an interesting way you phrase the question about how do you decide where they are. And I think it's, one of the things is it needs to take into account what your needs and highest desires and priorities are, right? If your boundaries don't allow you the room to establish those things, then they probably need to be stronger. And I was reading something a few months ago, though, that had a whole nother insight on boundaries, and sometimes boundaries can be limiting. And
Mhm.
it's not the way I think of boundaries. I usually think of them as there to help you as a protection, but they can also stifle you and limit you at the same time if they're too tight. So I guess it sometimes depends on whether you're creating them out of fear
Mm.
or creating them out of a desire to make sure that everybody around you is happy. And it is usually based in a belief that they are more deserving or more valuable than you are. So, you know, you can look at it in either way, but they're necessary. And I think, you know, when they've been intruded upon, that's when you start feeling very uncomfortable. You feel like there's something wrong with the situation, something is out of balance. It might feel unsafe. It certainly can feel like you're unappreciated sometimes, or maybe you feel like the balance in a relationship was there's a lot more giving on one side than the other. So I mean, there are lots of ways of knowing when they don't work. And I guess it's more a matter of fine-tuning it and perspective that you gain over years of, you know, where you need to establish them and where you can be flexible with them, and where you might need to push them out a little bit.
Mhm. Okay. We're gonna go back to that idea of boundaries being limiting in a minute, but I want to bring Mary in here and get her insight on this as well.
I love what Judy mentioned because you hit the nail on the head. That's one thing also I share every single call I get on with clients is you teach people how to treat you. And for me, boundaries, one, where I got to where I am right now is because it took me to actually realize that I was a doormat, that I had no boundaries. So in order to start implementing these boundaries, I had to get to this point where I was resentful, where I was saying, you know, I'm always helping Sally. Sally never helps me. I'm now stressed out because I have no time for myself. And I see a lot of head shakes. So I know, you know, a lot of us are like, yep, yes, I feel that. So boundary setting has been getting to this place of recognizing, okay, I'm being walked all over. I am that doormat. And that sounds harsh, but it's we have to hit that point, feeling the resentment, the stress. Maybe it's anxious, maybe it's just feeling burnt out. So when we hit that point, that's where it's we say, okay, enough is enough. And I have sure said enough is enough. I no longer want to be that doormat. And what's going to help me get to no longer be that doormat is setting these boundaries. So that's kind of like where I've gotten to this place of learning the power of boundaries.
So it's interesting because I think we go through phases also when it comes to our boundaries. You know, boundaries in our personal life, boundaries in our professional life, and especially when it comes to personal relationships. And let's delve into that a little bit more. Again, Judy, I don't want to forget that we want to talk about how boundaries can be limiting. So I'm saying that more for myself to remind me. So I don't want to forget that. I want to go back to that. But I do want to talk, since we're in this page part of the conversation, how how those boundaries affect our personal relationships.
I can
Either
go
one.
first time
Okay.
if you don't. Okay. So I love this question, personal relationships, because I'm big also on, I say how you do one thing is how you do everything. So where you have, I call them energy leaks, they're leaking everywhere else. So for personal relationships, I'll share a story that actually happened this past weekend. So for the story to make sense, I teach yoga here at the Jersey Shore, and this past Saturday, as Suzanne mentioned, it's been extremely hot here. And when all the yogis were in Shavasana, which is where you lay there, you meditate, I went and I jumped in the ocean. I didn't have my bathing suit on, I just went in my clothes. So now fast forward on Sunday morning, I'm walking and walking my dog on the beach, and I see this lady who was at the yoga class with another guy who I see, and we usually walk our dogs together. And he says, Mary, oh, I heard your yoga class was great. And then you jumped in the water and then you took all your clothes off. And he said it like that. real creepy. It didn't sit right in my body, right? We know, I'm sure some of us here can relate to that feeling where someone says something, maybe it's a friend, right? In that relationship, maybe it's at work and those aspects of our relationships. And in that moment, I said, okay, I took a breath. I looked him right in the eye. I put my hands on my hips, strong body language. I said, Mark, that's a little unnecessary, don't you think? And now I share this because I set that boundary, because in that moment, old Mary, the doormat, she would have shrugged it off, haha, played it cool. And in those instances, in those cases, I'm allowing myself to say, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that. And I'm going to call you out for that behavior. So I share that with you all. And to answer Denise's question, is because in our personal relationships, a big piece of that is how you communicate, how you're able to express that doesn't feel good to me. That's a little inappropriate. So how you share that, again, it all goes back to already what Judy's mentioned, is you teach people how to treat you. So in those aspects, I share that, and I share that for the purpose of, in relationships, is really communicating those boundaries.
It's an interesting situation, because I know when I was younger, there are a couple of situations that I can absolutely relate to that conversation, and I didn't handle it as strongly as you did. And it was something that for a very long time afterwards kind of haunted me. Not just, just because I would see this person on a pretty regular basis. And yeah, it took what could have been a nice friendship, a nice relationship, to something that just was really uncomfortable moving forward. So kudos to you for being able to, stand in your power. Judy, would you like to add?
Sure. Well, and yes, brilliant, Mary. That's cool that you had the wherewithal to react, and communicate what was and wasn't okay for you. What I've seen in personal relationships with clients is frequently, I've had lots of instances of people coming in and they feel taken for granted, they feel unappreciated. A lot of times they have families. A lot of times they also have careers. Sometimes it's only one or the other, but it's always, when we're talking about this, the instances that come up with the boundaries are frequently more of the personal type of boundary, even if it's in a work setting, than anything else. Priorities can be anywhere. And what I have seen to have made big differences with the people I've worked with is, changing those beliefs to know that they are valuable, that they deserve to be treated with respect. And one of the things, whenever you get into those types of relationships, is starting with yourself. So respecting yourself is one of the first beliefs that we go to change, because if that's not intact, it's going to be really difficult to make sure that works with other people.
Very good point. It always, everything always does have to start here, doesn't it? It has to start with ourselves. So I wanted to kind of go this. So we're talking personal relationships and boundaries. But as you mentioned, Judy, those personal relationships, really do tend to kind of morph into business relationships as well. And I know in a job that I had before I moved here to Minnesota, I was kind of that doormat that you were talking about, Mary. Anytime, there was extra work or an extra project or something, I would end up, they would end up dumping it on me because I would just accept it. And there were a lot of nights when I was there working till 10 o'clock at night, which was ridiculous. But I felt that, that was what I had to do, because, I was asked to do this, and I didn't have that personal strength to say, you're getting taken advantage of here. So let's kind of move that conversation into, from, obviously personal self into that workplace, and how that having these boundaries can be a catalyst for our success in business, in career, whatever success means to, to each individual person.
One place where I see it showing up frequently is with the priorities. It's exactly what you were talking about, Denise, and sometimes it's not even, being asked, but frequently people will come in, you see those little signs of your emergency isn't mine, that's the gist of it. And your lack of planning is not my, not my priority. But they'll come in, the things will come in, and there'll be tons of things. And you might have started the day thinking that your priorities are A, B, and C. And if at the end of the day, your priorities aren't still A, B, and C, you haven't established good boundaries. I mean, there are exceptions always, but generally speaking, if your stuff always goes to the bottom of the list, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's as an entrepreneur, whether it's in the family, if the things that rise to the top are all generated by the other people, that's a clue that your beliefs about yourself might need looking at. And I think those are really closely aligned with the boundaries of being able to say, I hear this, let's figure out a way for you to solve the problem, but I need to do these things first because these are important to me.
That makes sense. Mary?
Yeah, I love that, Judy. And so boundaries in the workplace, one thing that that I've had to do with myself and I do with clients is, well, why am I not willing to say no? Why am I not willing to stand up for myself? Because I used to be and it's still a little bit there, not gonna lie, the type A personality. I have big goals and dreams, and that before I started working for myself also was in the workplace. And oh yeah, give this to me, I'll take that on. Also, while I'm trying to juggle other things and personal lives, and Susanna's calling me for advice, and I'm like, whoa, I'm at work, I have a lot going on. And when I'm asking myself, why am I willing to give to everyone and take on all these projects and do all of these? And when I got to the why, it was, oh, because I love helping people, right? All of us here, I know we all have big hearts. We love helping people, but it's deeper than that. And I said, Mary, you're not going to go give all the money, all the dollars away in your bank account because you love people. You got to survive here, girl. And right now we're not surviving. We're a little tired here at work. And when I got to the why, it's because I just wanted everyone to like me. I was that people pleaser. I can't let people down. I can't do that. Again, why? Why, Mary? Why are you doing that? Well, because if I let people down, then that means that they might not like me. And that means that I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. So then when you realize these and you get to the why and you keep going, you're getting deeper and deeper, I was able to shift these. I was able to shift and set boundaries at work and say no. And yes, it was very scary. Sorry, I got rid of the sorry. No, unfortunately, I have a lot on my plate and it doesn't feel good to me at this moment to have this added work. Hold my breath. And then over time you go stronger and stronger. And when we set these boundaries, you realize that actually, why was I giving so much power to, oh my God, what if my coworker doesn't like me? Oh my God, what if they don't think I'm as strong as I want to try to prove myself and prove my worth? So setting those boundaries in the workplace is really a great opportunity to understand more of yourself. So if you're struggling to set those boundaries, how can you look at it as an opportunity that you're actually growing stronger? So that's my take.
I think it's funny because you said something that I think all of us can, well, I can say with pretty good, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm pretty sure that every one of us has done this. Oh, yeah, I can't really do this. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yes, or the yes, but the I'm sorry. always apologizing. And I think when it comes to boundaries, that's a bit of a conversation too, is apologizing for having boundaries, having set boundaries. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I find, okay, as especially as women, we are so easily to say I'm sorry. And we could, accidentally bump into someone, I'm sorry. And or in regards to setting the boundaries, I want to ask you, are you actually sorry? Are you actually sorry? Because if you are, then we need to go a little bit deeper and do some more healing and self-love. But if you're like, no, I'm not actually sorry, then there you go. Stop saying I'm sorry. And for me also, it was the over explanation. Well, I would help you, but like Denise said, but I have X, Y, and Z. And again, we teach people how to treat us. And if people aren't willing to accept our boundaries, then they're just showing us exactly why we need to set those boundaries.
Judy, I'd love to pull you in, please.
I love that. It's like the meditation thing. If you don't have time to meditate for 5, you need to meditate for 10, right? Yeah, the lack of boundaries does point out where you need them the most. Yeah, I was just reacting to that. I think that's brilliant.
So I think this may be a good time to bring in our guest thoughts, comments. I think it's always this is a fun part of the meaningful conversations, is to really bring everybody in and get some additional insight. So Suzanne, Lynn, if you have thoughts, definitely please share.
I would say what immediately came to mind is that this is a work in progress. You're never done with this. You think you are, and then as you grow or as your business grows, and you're challenged yet again with more. And I think that's really important, because I kind of thought, oh, I did all that work. Like I shouldn't have to, make more boundaries or reinvent boundaries. But truly, it's such a fluid work in progress. And I think more people need to know that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would agree, Miss Suzanne. I think we're all works in progress, and you guys, Mary and Judy, you've identified some things that are huge. And I think being a part of the work in progress is to acknowledge and avoid the slippage, because especially when you do new things, so coming out of a corporate environment and then working for myself, I can tell you that it's fascinating when people rely on me being the helper and supporter and all of that, and they'll call with questions or seek my advice or my recommendations when it pertains to what I'm currently doing as a profession. And so to find the way to say, you know what, that's what I do when I work with my clients. Should we set up a time? That took me forever, because I was going to slip back into the, oh, of course I can help you, because that's who I am at my core. But the over explanation really kind of made me chuckle too, because how many times have we all, I know I've been there. Well, I've got this and this and this. And it's like, who cares? Have your yes mean yes and your no mean no. So that's part of the growth and the evolution that I think we kind of come around to. And we're putty. We're learning and growing and like a little amoeba every day, and things are going to come up, and it's just time for us to kind of go blurp blurp and see what the new piece is.
I love it. I love it. This is so fun. I love the fact that what you just said, Lynn, about yes meaning yes and no meaning no. I think that so far, that is the piece that I'm going to, I think I may put it on a sticky note and put it right here in front of me, because I'm an over explainer. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the best sales training I ever took in my whole entire life. It wasn't even labeled as a sales training. It was, if the person you're talking to is not a hell yes, then make them a hell no, because that gray area is flipping painful. So don't do it. And the same applies to us, especially as women. We have so many different roles that we do, you know, from parenthood to spousehood to a job to whatever. Well, there's a couple things that I don't like to do. I can either decide to have it be miserable in the gray area. Oh, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to, but you have to. Or you just say, I don't do that.
Suzanne, you said something to me once when it came to diet. And of course, for me, you know,
Oh, Sue doesn't do that.
Sue doesn't eat that anymore. Sue doesn't do that anymore.
Yep.
That was something that resonated with me then and resonates with me, you know, to this day.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a very, it's a brilliant comment. You
Yeah.
know, just
I didn't
I don't do
invent
that
it.
anymore.
It comes from Bright Line Eating.
Mhm.
And I've applied it to fitness things. I've applied it to people. No, I don't do that anymore. And
Love
when
it.
you talk about it in a third person, it affects your subconscious differently. So I used to have a Diet Coke problem. I love Diet Coke still to this day. Just saying the word Diet Coke, I'm like, yeah, that would be yummy right now. But whenever I go out into the garage where we have soda, I say to myself, Sue doesn't drink Diet Coke anymore.
I
She
love it.
also
I
doesn't
love it.
smoke anymore, and she misses that too, even though she knows it's very unhealthy. But you know,
But again,
all
it's this
all
is
of those
this
things.
is your boundary. You know, these are
Yeah,
boundaries that you've set for yourself, and you can by verbalizing and saying Sue doesn't do this anymore. You're really just making sure that okay, you're reminding yourself every single time you say that.
yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'd like to bring in this concept that we talked about earlier, that Judy brought up earlier about, you know, how boundaries can be limiting. So thus far, we've been talking about boundaries are, you know, they're really good for us. They help us to teach people how that they should be treating us. But I do believe, and I do believe there are times when boundaries can be limiting. So I'd really like for us to shift this conversation and talk about that more. So Judy, please. Give us your insight there.
Sure. I think a lot of times that is based on fear, right? You put those boundaries in place to protect you, and sometimes they're very close, and maybe need to get a little broader, because you need to be able to take more risks. You need to be able to try more things out and see where they go. My personal opinion is when the boundaries are too close, you're not making choices based on what you want. You're making it based on what you want to avoid. So there is some consequence that you don't want if you allowed those boundaries to be bigger. Maybe it's failing, maybe it's vulnerability of some sort, and who knows, fear of being seen, fear of being heard. There are all sorts of fears out there that can impact you. But sometimes it can be just habit. It can be a matter of just being made aware of the fact that you're just doing things the same way because you haven't thought about it too hard. But other times it can be subconscious beliefs in there that are making it really scary to change those boundaries and try new, try different, allow more, you know, fail if you must. It's learning, right? I mean, it depends on what you call it, but you got to practice things to get good at it. So I think a lot of times people put those in place. It might be a control thing. you know, where you can make the boundaries really close so you feel more in control of what's inside of them.
Interesting. I'm doing a talk on Monday, actually about our healthy thinking book that we wrote at Living Healthy List. And control is almost a theme throughout the entire book. I didn't realize that as we were writing it, but control is literally, it is a thread through the entire book. Each chapter talks about it in some way, shape, or form. And I think you're right, when, you know, we're all trying to control whatever it is that we control. And I think when it comes to boundaries, if it's the one thing that we can control, it's the one thing that we can actually feel safe and feel comfortable and feel confident about. And so I do believe that, you know, if that is the case, there is some more inner work that we need to do. So Mary, I'd like to bring you in on this part of this conversation too, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. And I love what Judy mentioned about there's these subconscious beliefs, and then also you, Denise, adding, going deeper, expanding onto the control piece, because I know for me, I'll share that this past weekend, my sister asked if she could sleep over on Friday night and hang out. And normally she just comes down on Saturdays, and she usually leaves around 3 because she works in this area. And I had to sit with it because my heart wanted to say yes, but my head, the logic's like, no, 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 no. She's an energy vampire. She's a lot. I love her. I love my sister to death, but I put those boundaries in place with her because I'm drained. But this time I led with my heart. And because, like Judy said, we have these subconscious beliefs, and I realized my head, the logic is just trying to keep me safe from possibly creating deeper connection. And where Denise mentions the control piece, because in the past where I've been able to be open and vulnerable and share with her, I've had that trust broken. And so why I don't want to create the limiting belief, these subconscious limiting beliefs, as Judy mentioned, for me at least, was, well, it's what if we spend time together and that trust gets broken again? And so I opened my heart. I said, yep, you're happy to come over, stay over. And while meeting, I did set a boundary because we had such a great time. We had so much fun. We put on some country songs and we're making up dances to them. And she's older than me. And we were acting, our inner child just came out, and we were just having so much fun. But I did get to set a boundary because I said, okay, I go to bed really early. I said, whoa, it's getting my bedtime. She's like, come on, just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I said, I love you've had a lot of fun, right? This is the communication piece again, which I shared at the very beginning. I've had so much fun with you, and it's just going to be very important for me to go to bed, get ready for bed, because I need to get up early so I can be focused for the day. Totally understood. So I love that we're talking about this limiting part, because it definitely, for me, it's when it shows up that it's limiting me, is like, is it trying to protect you from creating deeper connection? So that was a beautiful experience that I got to see that. And then I still got to honor my my boundary, which I knew would feel good for me the next day.
But you bring a good point. You know, they are our boundaries, and we need to honor them when it makes sense to, or not dishonor them. That's not the right word, you know, or, you know, kind of give them a little slack when it's appropriate. We just have to make the decision when it's appropriate, because, you know, having this boundary, if this was something that every single week that you're, you know, letting slip, now it's not a boundary anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, being intentional about anything, really. You know, intentionally choosing what you're going to eat, or intentionally choosing who you're going to be with, or, you know, and certainly being intentional about when to keep the boundaries, I think is really critical.
It's, you know, it is a topic as women that I know we all struggle with, and it as Suzanne brings that point, that, you know, it is something that is always evolving. What are some of the situations that come up that where we have to, you know, make those or make those boundaries evolve a bit. So just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love that question because so for me, in that aspect, I look at as it's a practice of trusting myself. How can I this to trust myself? And then so I'll use an example from I think 2 weeks ago when something happened that crossed my boundary and I didn't realize it I was feeling a little bit off for about a day or two. And I was sitting with myself and I said, okay, how do I want to go about this situation? And I said, okay, I have to communicate. Hey, this crossed the line. I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling comfortable. And so sometimes when we are really growing our muscle with boundaries, it is going to be normal to have it's like I've been an athlete my whole life. Some games you play really well in some areas, some games you could have improved a little bit better. I played basketball, I could have worked on my foul shots a little bit more. So it's really I invite you to think of how can you look at as just it's a practice of trusting yourself. And because in that moment, the version of Mary who wants to grow stronger and trusting herself in order so next time she would have set the boundary before instead of feeling guilty after, instead of feeling shameful, she would have set the boundary before. But in order to get that, I have to say, okay, well, what's the next step? The next step is to now, even though that it's the past, I have to communicate, I have to express. So I trusted myself enough in that moment that I would implement that boundary. And now I trust myself moving forward that I will, instead of having to do it maybe a couple of days later, I'll do it in that moment. So it's definitely an ongoing practice of trust and just growing that trust muscle with yourself.
I love that, the boundary muscle. I wrote down boundary muscle. Judy.
I love that because trust, you're absolutely right. You got to trust yourself to make that decision in an ongoing way, right? I mean, something is always going to try to push against the boundaries. I think back when I had teenagers and, there was always the boundary pushing, right? And you can't be like, these are the rules, they're only the rules, these are, these will never change. I can remember when I'd gone to a continuing education class about negotiation and came back and was trying to teach my senior in high school daughter about negotiating when she wanted to go to the prom. And she said, what time do I need to come home? And I said, well, what's your curfew? And she's just kind of like, midnight or whatever it was, and I'm going, so I have that so that I feel comfortable knowing that you're safe and at home. What is it you want to stay out later for? Let's talk about it and see if, and she looked at me like I'd grown another head or something, because this had never come out of my mouth before. But we ended up on something that was a fair compromise. It was a big night. I remember that, there are lots of parties and things that happen after prom. You don't want to be the one that has to lead the party. But so, I mean, being able to look at situations, trust yourself to know when you're choosing to change the boundary or make it a little bit more fluid and when it needs to stay intact. And the other one is like looking at it from the long-term perspective. Is this going to matter later? I mean, I think that's always a good question to ask. I'm a recovering rule follower, right? So if I've set the rules, it's like, these are the rules, and you need to be a little bit more open to maybe challenging the rules or breaking the rules or not following the rules if they really don't make any sense in this current situation. So looking at the long-term effects of not maintaining something, I think is also good.
It's always funny because I'm the rule follower and I live with the rule breaker.
And I'm
there-
giggling because all I can think of is I learned how to ask for forgiveness rather than permission in a lot of what I did professionally, because I was the first woman to do most of my jobs. And I thought, okay, these guys don't have my perspective. I'm just going to ask for forgiveness.
I love that. Thank you. Suzanne, why don't you, I know Suzanne's mind so well, like I know she's got a good comment, a good thought in here.
Just that we're, as leaders, as coaches, as helpers of other people, even if you're, a mom at home with kids not working, there's always these decisions to make. And I love what Mary said about trusting herself. There's been numerous times within the past 2 or 3 months where I've been called to step up in a bigger way and make decisions not only for myself, but that affect my clients or my community and people that are in my inner circle. And what will I stand for and what will I not stand for? And I think the hardest part is, if I do this or make this decision, so and so's not going to like me. Which I notice my husband has a very large position with a company, and he's gotten 3 or 4 promotions in the last, 4 or 5 years. More responsibility, more, people underneath of him. He never apologizes if he doesn't have room on his calendar or time to do something, and I think it's a female trait that we feel like we need to do that. And I heard him recently on a meeting, and he just said, "That's not my job. I don't do that. Please go back to the salesperson who sold that to you." And I was like, oh. And I said something to him afterwards, like, wow, you handled that with such divinity. He goes, it was the 7th time I had to tell her. And I was like, oh, okay. So I felt a little bit better, right? But it was still really inspiring to me that he can just go, that's not in my zone of genius. And
we're too touchy-feely as women, I think. That's and men are much more cut and dry, black and white. We kind of like live in a bit of that world of gray that Suzanne was talking about before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a little bit, just a little bit more time left. So I want Mary and Judy to be able to kind of bring in a thought that we haven't touched on yet. So something we haven't touched on yet that you want to share with the audience. And then at the as we're about to close, I'll have you both just tell us where people can find you. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. So Mary, now you're on that side of me, so I'm going to pick on you.
Okay, perfect. A thought that we haven't touched on, I would like to expand a little bit onto the last story that I shared, where I thought about, okay, this crossed my boundary, I need to set it. And where I could have stayed in that shame, I could have stayed in that guilt, I could have stayed in beating myself up. Mary, how did you do this? You work on boundaries. This is what you do. And I could have just continued to beat myself up. But I feel guided to remind us that even though we can stay in that place, it is essential to flip the mindset and flip the switch of, okay, well, how is this serving me? Because this is actually showing me, this is providing me an opportunity to grow a little bit stronger. And even in the past, maybe when, and maybe you're in a situation right now where you're like, I'm so scared to set boundaries. That's okay, because it's teaching you and it's serving you. So it's like, yes, we want to be on the other side immediately. And Suzanne hit the nail on the head earlier too about it's always going to continue to show up. And so if we just avoid it, or if we just stay in this place of beating ourselves up and Mary, better, come on, this, instead moving through that, flipping the switch, flipping the mindset to this is this is a lesson serving me. And just like, again, at the beginning, how I mentioned I was a doormat, I needed to be that doormat so I can make sure I never feel like that doormat ever again. So wherever you are, in whatever part of your journey, it is so essential.
Thanks, Mary. Miss Judy.
Yeah, I really like that. Giving yourself grace and understanding it's always a learning process, I think is a real big takeaway. I guess the other thing I would mention is, because I tend to approach things with logic, right, is looking at the situations and taking a second to analyze, well, what's the worst that can happen? And what's the best that can come out of doing this? And, just kind of looking at your options and being clear about which path you want to be going on, because that depends, you got to know where you're going and what you want to be able to pick the path you're going to do. So I think just looking at the options and considering what that might mean. Is it doormat? Is it rigid, never changing your response to anything that's outside? I mean, there's a lot of room in there in between to choose how you want to get where you're going.
Wonderful. So just we're about to close. We're just got a few more minutes. Mary and Judy, if you would just tell us where people can find you, and then we'll close out.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's really beautiful to connect with you ladies, Denise, Judy, Lynn, and Suzanne. You can find me. I'm on pretty much all social platforms. If you're on Instagram, I'm at MaryMC4. And I have my podcast. We just celebrated our 100th episode. And yeah, thank you. And we'll be coming on 2 years in December. And that's the Living Your True Vibe.
Okay, and I'll make sure we have that all in the show notes. And Judy.
Yeah, well, the best place to go to find out anything about me or what I do is my website, which is alignedconsciousness.com. So I've got aligned consciousness in my name there. So you just, take out the space and put a .com on it. You can find downloadable resources there. You can find links to LinkedIn or Facebook. You can see all sorts of things there about more about subconscious beliefs. So that would be the best place to go.
Okay, and again, I'll make sure we have that information. So for those of you who are listening to the replay, watching our replay, if you find today's discussion helpful, I encourage you to connect with our speakers offline, get to know them, what they do, listen to Mary's podcast. Additionally, don't forget to subscribe at livinghealthylist.com for ongoing support from me and our group of health and wellness experts. As the Healthy Living Liaison, I can guide you towards your goals. Sometimes it's working with me, sometimes it's working with other experts, and I am very confident in doing so because the people that I refer are people that I know, love, and trust. So please go to livinghealthylist.com, get the first 3 chapters of my book here. It's called Healthy Living, Happy Life, because if we are not having a good time doing all of the things that we're supposed to do, then what's the point? So Healthy Living, Happy Life. Thank you, everyone. We are here every second Tuesday of the month for the Meaningful Conversations. Come and join us for deep discussion, for chats that can change your life. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Mary and to Judy, Lynn, and Suzanne. Thank you for your insights as well.
Thank you.